Have you ever wondered what existed before the creation of the world as described in Genesis 1:1? Journey with us into the hidden mysteries of the Bible as we uncover secrets never taught in Sunday school. From cosmic battles between angels and watchers to ancient events that shaped humanity's very DNA, this video explores the untold story of creation, divine intervention, and the forces that have influenced our world long before Adam and Eve. Discover the pre-Genesis universe in celestial conflicts, the Watchers and the Nephilim, giants that once walked the earth, how Eden was more than paradise, a controlled environment, the hidden bloodlines and the ultimate purpose of the Messiah, why the Bible's first chapters are a cosmic blueprint, not just a story. Prepare to see the Bible like never before, as a record of an ancient war, a divine experiment, and the secret history of humanity. What really happened before Genesis 1:1? Chapter 1, Before the Beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That is how the Bible opens. But what if that wasn't the beginning? What if Genesis 1:1 is not the start of everything, but the start of something after something else had already happened? Tonight, we explore the most forbidden question in biblical theology. What really happened before Genesis 1:1? The problem with the beginning. Genesis begins with a simple phrase, "in the beginning." But in the original Hebrew, the word used is Bereshit, and Bereshit does not mean the absolute beginning. It means at a beginning, within a beginning, after a starting point, not the beginning, just a beginning, which implies something existed before it. God without a timeline. The Bible never says God was created. God is described as eternal, outside time, before time, which means time itself had a starting point. But if time started at Genesis 1:1, what was God doing before time existed? The Bible gives clues, not directly, but through scattered verses hidden across Scripture. The heaven that already existed. Job 38 contains one of the strangest passages in the entire Bible. God asks Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy?" The earth is being created, but angels already exist. They are watching, celebrating, which means heaven existed before earth. And heaven is not empty. It is populated, structured, active. The first creation. Before there was a physical world, there was a spiritual world. Before humans, there were angels. Before Adam, there were beings called the sons of God, the hosts of heaven, the divine council. God had already created an entire realm of intelligent life, a kingdom, a government, a cosmic order. Genesis does not describe this creation. It assumes it already happened. The silence between the verses. Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Genesis 1:2 says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep." This is strange. Why would a perfect God create something formless, empty, and dark? The Hebrew words are tohu, chaos, ruin, bohu, emptiness, waste. These words are never used for something newly created. They describe something that was destroyed, which suggests the earth was not created chaotic, it became chaotic. The gap theory. This leads to one of the oldest hidden ideas in theology, the gap theory, that between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, there is a missing event, an entire age, a lost world, a catastrophic fall. Not of humanity, but of something else. The fall before Adam. Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 describe a mysterious figure, a being called Lucifer, the anointed cherub, the light bearer. He is described as perfect in beauty, full of wisdom, walking among the stones of fire, in Eden before Adam. He is cast down, thrown from heaven, a rebellion, a cosmic war. This did not happen in human history. It happened before Genesis. The war in heaven. Revelation 12 gives a shocking vision, a war in heaven. Angels fighting angels, Michael against the dragon, stars falling from the sky. Stars are symbolic language for angels. 1/3 of heaven fell. This is not symbolic myth, it is spiritual history. The ruined world. Some theologians believe the original earth was created long before Adam, populated not by humans, but by angelic beings. A pre-Adamic world. When Lucifer fell, the world was judged, destroyed, left in darkness. Genesis 1:2 describes the aftermath, not the beginning. Why Genesis restarts? Genesis 1 is not creation from nothing, it is reconstruction. God does not say, "Let there be earth." He says, "Let there be light." He separates waters, restores order, rebuilds structure, like someone cleaning up after a disaster. Adam as a new beginning. Adam is not God's first creation. He is God's second experiment. A new species, a new order, a new plan. Not angels, not spiritual beings, but physical creatures with free will, placed in a restored world, not the original one. Why this was never explained clearly? Because humans were not ready for it. The Bible is written for redemption, not cosmic history. God reveals only what is necessary, but the clues remain, scattered, hidden, waiting for minds willing to ask forbidden questions. The terrifying implication. If there was a world before Adam, and it was destroyed, then humanity is not the first intelligent civilization. We are not unique. We are the replacement. The final question of chapter 1. If God already judged one world, what happens if this one follows the same path? Before Genesis, there was heaven. Before Adam, there was a fall. And before humanity, there was already a story of rebellion. This is not the first creation. It is the second. Chapter 2. The Lost World Before Adam. If Genesis is a restoration, then something existed that needed restoring. Not a myth, not speculation, but a forgotten world, erased from memory, yet hinted at in Scripture. Tonight we explore the most controversial idea in biblical history, a world before Adam. The earth that was. Genesis 1:1 declares, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." But Genesis 1:2 says, "And the earth was without form and void." The word "was" in Hebrew is hayah. It can also mean became, turned into, came to be. Meaning the verse can read, "And the earth became without form and void." Not created that way, but ruined. A world judged, not born. Jeremiah 4:23 uses the same words. "I beheld the earth, and it was without form and void." But Jeremiah is describing judgment, destruction, not creation. The same language, same imagery, same condition, which implies Genesis 1:2 describes a planet after judgment. The missing civilization. The Bible never directly describes who lived in this world, but it hints. Through poetic language, through symbolic verses, through prophetic imagery. Some believe these were angelic rulers, spiritual beings, not flesh and blood humans. Creatures with intellect, power, technology beyond our understanding. A civilization not physical like ours, but real. The stones of fire. Ezekiel 28 describes Lucifer. "You walked among the stones of fire." Not metaphor, ancient language for energy, light, cosmic structures, a high-dimensional realm, a planet that was more than matter. Why there are fossils before Adam? Modern science says dinosaurs lived millions of years before humans, but Genesis places Adam only thousands of years ago. The Bible never says Adam was the first biological life, only the first human in God's image. The earth may have had life, creatures, entire ecosystems before Adam, wiped out, then restarted. The age of the Earth problem. Why does the universe appear billions of years old? Because it might be. Genesis does not deny this. It simply begins after the reset. The Bible focuses on redemption, not ancient cosmic history. The judgment of Lucifer. Isaiah 14 says, "How you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer! You said in your heart, I will ascend above the stars of God." This was not human pride. This was celestial rebellion, a ruler attempting to overthrow the throne, a cosmic coup. The collapse of the first order. When Lucifer fell, he did not fall alone. Revelation says 1/3 of the stars fell with him, a massive collapse of the original kingdom. Heaven fractured, the universe destabilized, and the earth was caught in the aftermath. The darkness that covered everything. Genesis 1:2. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Not natural darkness, spiritual darkness, judgment darkness. The same darkness described during the plagues of Egypt, the crucifixion of Christ, and the final judgment in Revelation, a sign of divine intervention. The waters of destruction. The deep is Tehom in Hebrew, the same word used for the flood of Noah, the abyss, the underworld. Water is symbolic of chaos and judgment. The world before Adam was submerged, silenced, erased. Why did God not destroy Lucifer completely? Because the plan changed. Instead of immediate annihilation, God created a new species, humanity, not to replace angels, but to judge them. Paul writes, "Do you not know that we will judge angels?" Humans are part of a larger cosmic courtroom. Earth as a trial world. A place where free will is tested, loyalty is proven, faith is demonstrated. Angels failed. Humans are being evaluated. Why the serpent was already there. In Eden, the serpent already exists. Evil is already present, before Adam sinned, which means sin existed before humanity. Adam didn't invent rebellion, he inherited a battlefield. The real reason for Eden. Eden was not paradise, it was a containment zone, a controlled environment, a clean space within a corrupted world. God placed Adam there as a seed, a new beginning inside a broken system. The shocking possibility. If the first world existed and it was destroyed, then heaven and earth have already seen one apocalypse, one rebellion, one destruction. Humanity is living in the aftershock. The final thought of chapter 2. We are not living in God's first creation. We are living in his response to a failure, a recovery project, a second chance for the universe. Before Adam walked the earth, another order ruled it. Before humanity sinned, rebellion already existed. And before Genesis began, a world had already ended. Chapter 3. The Watchers and the Second Invasion. The first world fell. It was erased, but rebellion did not end. It evolved. What failed in heaven returned to earth, not as kings, not as rulers, but as watchers. The sons of God. Genesis 6 opens with one of the most disturbing passages in Scripture. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves. Who are the sons of God? The same phrase appears in Job, and it always refers to angels, not humans, not kings, not symbolic beings, celestial entities. The Watchers. The Book of Enoch names them, the Watchers, angels assigned to observe humanity, guard it, guide it. Instead, they desired it. They descended, not spiritually, physically. They took human women, and something unnatural was born. The Nephilim. Genesis calls them the Nephilim, translated as the fallen ones, the giants, those who came down. Hybrid beings, half divine, half human, not metaphors, not myths, but biological anomalies, creatures that should not exist. These beings were gigantic, violent, supernaturally intelligent, impossible to control. They were not just tall humans, they were a different species, a genetic corruption, a perversion of God's design. Why this terrified heaven? God created humans in His image, not angels, not hybrids. When angels corrupted human DNA, they attacked the redemption plan itself. If humanity was no longer pure, the Messiah could not be born. The lineage was under threat. The second rebellion. Lucifer failed to overthrow God directly, so he attacked the creation plan. If he couldn't rule heaven, he would ruin earth. The knowledge they brought. Enoch says the Watchers taught humans advanced metallurgy, astronomy, weapons, cosmetics, sorcery, genetic manipulation. Civilization advanced too fast. Knowledge without wisdom, power without restraint, technology without morality. The golden age that was not. Ancient myths talk about gods walking among men, giants ruling nations, superhuman kings. Every culture remembers this period, not as history, but as legend, because the truth was buried. The corruption of all flesh. Genesis 6:12 says, all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. Not just humans, animals, creatures, life itself. Something went wrong with biology. The natural order collapsed. Why the flood was necessary? The flood was not just punishment, it was containment. God wiped the surface, preserved only what was uncorrupted. Noah was described as perfect in his generations, not morally perfect, genetically pure, unaltered. The Watchers were not killed, they were imprisoned, bound in the abyss, waiting for judgment. Their offspring were destroyed, but their spirits became something else. Demons, disembodied consciousness, seeking bodies. Explains possession, explains obsession, explains the hunger for physical experience. Why giants appear again after the flood. The Nephilim return. Goliath, the Anakim, the Rephaim, which means the invasion happened again. Some Watchers escaped, or genetic material survived. The war continued. The battle for bloodlines. Throughout the Old Testament, God commands destruction of specific tribes, not genocide, containment, to eliminate hybrid lineages, to preserve the human genome. Why this story was never taught? Because it shatters modern theology. It turns the Bible into a cosmic war story, a genetic thriller, a multi-dimensional conflict, not just moral lessons, but spiritual science. The real meaning of demons. Demons are not fallen angels. They are the ghosts of the Nephilim, trapped between dimensions, seeking embodiment. Explains possession, explains obsession, explains the hunger for physical experience. The second flood coming. Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man, meaning genetic corruption will return, hybridization, artificial intelligence, transhumanism, the same pattern, different technology. The final warning of chapter 4. The first invasion failed, the second was drowned, the third is happening now, but this time it's not angels descending, it's humans ascending, trying to become gods. The Watchers fell, the giants rose, the world was drowned, and humanity inherited a planet already scarred by a war older than memory itself. Chapter 4. The war that never ended. The flood did not end the war, it only changed its form. What began in heaven moved to earth and now hides inside human systems itself. The greatest deception is not that the ancient war is over, it is that most people no longer realize it is still happening. From cosmic war to psychological war. In the beginning, The conflict was visible: angels falling, giants roaming, fire from heaven, floods reshaping the world. But after the flood, something changed. The enemy no longer attacked from the outside. It moved inside human systems, governments, religions, technologies, belief structures. The battlefield became invisible. The serpent's new strategy. In Eden, the serpent used one weapon: knowledge, not violence, not force, not fear, information. You shall be like gods. The same temptation exists today, not through angels, but through science without limits, technology without ethics, power without accountability. The serpent no longer needs a body, it operates through ideas. The modern watchers. In ancient times, the watchers descended physically. Today, they descend digitally, through algorithms, artificial intelligence, surveillance systems, predictive technologies. Entities that observe everything, learn constantly, influence behavior, shape reality. We built them, but we do not fully control them. The new giants. The giants were not just tall, they were stronger, smarter, more dominant. Today's giants are not physical, they are mega corporations, global systems, AI networks, financial empires, structures too big to stop, too complex to understand, too powerful to resist. The repeat of Babel. The Tower of Babel was humanity's first attempt to build a global system. One language, one structure, one power. God destroyed it, not because he feared height, but because humanity was building a centralized consciousness. Today, we have the internet, global databases, shared identity systems, collective digital memory. Babel was never destroyed, it was postponed. The transhuman experiment. Modern humanity is now attempting something forbidden again, merging biology with machines, neural implants, genetic editing, synthetic consciousness, digital immortality. The same goal as the Watchers: to transcend natural limits, to redesign creation, to become gods. The second corruption of flesh. Genesis said, all flesh was corrupted. Today we call it bioengineering, CRISPR, human enhancement, designer DNA. Different language, same act, altering what God created. Why demons no longer need possession. In the past, demons needed human bodies. Today, humans willingly surrender their minds. Addiction, obsession, identity fragmentation, digital dissociation. Possession is no longer supernatural, it is psychological. The hidden priesthood. Every age has spiritual leaders. Today's priests are data scientists, engineers, programmers, technocrats. They shape reality, not through prayer, but through code. The war for consciousness. The real battlefield is not nations, it is awareness, attention, belief, perception, identity. Who controls what humans think, controls what humans become. The final stage of the war. Revelation describes a time when humans can no longer buy or sell without a system, a global identity structure, not tyranny, infrastructure, not chains, convenience. The final control system will not feel like slavery, it will feel like progress. Why most people will accept it? Because it promises security, longevity, connection, meaning. The same promise made in Eden: you will not die. The shocking realization. The ancient war is no longer between angels, it is between what humanity is and what humanity is becoming. Not fallen angels versus God, but transformed humans versus their own origin. The final warning of chapter 4. The Watchers failed because they revealed themselves. The new system will succeed because it does not. It does not appear as monsters. It appears as tools. It does not enslave. It upgrades. The giants once walked the earth. Now they exist in systems. The demons once sought bodies. Now they seek minds. And the war that once shook heaven is now being fought quietly inside human consciousness itself. Chapter 5. The Garden That Was Never Meant to Last. The Eden of Eden is usually remembered as paradise, a perfect world. No death, no suffering, no evil. But what if Eden was never meant to be permanent? What if it wasn't heaven on earth, but a controlled environment inside a broken world? Not a destination, a test chamber. Eden was not the whole earth. Genesis never says the entire planet was Eden. It says God planted a garden, one specific region, surrounded by 4 rivers, with borders, with access points, with an entrance and an exit. Eden was a zone, not a world, which means outside Eden, something else already existed. Why there was a tree of knowledge? If Eden was perfect, why place a forbidden tree inside it? Why allow temptation at all? Because Eden was not about comfort, it was about choice, a psychological environment designed to test obedience, trust, free will, loyalty. The same variables tested in angels, now tested in humans. The serpent was already inside. The serpent didn't break into Eden, it was already there, which means evil was already present in creation, not introduced by Adam, only activated through him. Eden was built inside enemy territory, not outside it. Eden as a quarantine zone. God places humans in a protected space, not because the world is safe, but because it is not. Outside Eden is thorns, predators, death, decay. Eden is an island of order inside chaos. The tree of life. The tree of life grants immortality. God blocks access after the fall. Why? Because eternal life in a corrupted state is worse than death. Immortality was conditional, not guaranteed. The real sin was not disobedience. The real sin was unauthorized knowledge, the same sin as the Watchers, crossing boundaries, accessing information not meant for their level. The serpent didn't offer pleasure, it offered perception. You will be like God, knowing, not feeling, knowing. The moment humanity awakened. When Adam and Eve eat the fruit, they don't die instantly. They become self-aware. They see themselves. They hide. They experience shame. They perceive reality differently. They exit innocence and enter consciousness. The fall was a download, not physical death, but cognitive transformation, a forced upgrade. Humanity gained abstract thought, moral awareness, existential fear, identity. The price was peace. Why God exiles them? Not punishment, containment. Humans are no longer compatible with Eden. The system rejects them. Like corrupted data, they must be removed, not to suffer, but because they are now dangerous. The sword at the gate. God places cherubim with flaming swords, not symbolic, security, access control, a firewall between immortality potential and corrupted consciousness. Humanity is locked out of godhood for its own survival. The real purpose of Eden. Eden was not paradise, it was human beta testing, a simulation environment, a controlled interface between divine order and biological life. The test failed, not morally, structurally. The shift from biology to history. After Eden, there are no more perfect systems, no more isolated zones, no more resets. Humanity enters open reality, unprotected, unfiltered, subject to entropy, conflict, time, death, history begins. Why Eden never returns? Eden is never restored, not even in Revelation. Heaven is not Eden. The new earth is not Eden, because Eden represents innocence, and innocence cannot be recreated once consciousness exists. The terrifying realization. Eden was not humanity's home, it was humanity's incubator. We were never meant to stay there. We were meant to outgrow it, even if growth meant suffering. The final thought of chapter 5. The greatest tragedy of Eden is not that it was lost, it's that it worked exactly as designed. Humanity awakened, the experiment concluded, and the real story began. Eden was not taken from humanity. Humanity outgrew Eden, and once consciousness awakens, there is no going back to paradise, only forward into the unknown. Chapter 6. The bloodlines, the covenant, and why God chose one family. After Eden, humanity spreads across the earth. Cities rise, technology develops, languages multiply, civilizations emerge. But something else spreads too, something invisible, something genetic, something spiritual, a corruption in the human line. And God responds not by destroying the world again, but by selecting a single bloodline. Why God stops dealing with everyone? In the early chapters of Genesis, God speaks to all humanity, but suddenly, after Babel, he speaks to one man, Abram, later called Abraham. The global experiment ends. The targeted experiment begins. The Tower of Babel was the last warning. Babel was not about tall buildings. It was about unified consciousness. One language, one mind, one purpose. Humanity was becoming too coordinated, too powerful, too fast. And again, not morally, structurally dangerous. God fractures human communication, not as punishment, but to prevent another Eden-level event. The shift to biological strategy. Instead of managing billions of humans, God focuses on one bloodline tree, not because others don't matter, but because something must be preserved, a lineage untainted, a biological channel capable of hosting divine interaction. The promise to Abraham. God doesn't promise Abraham riches, he promises descendants, a seed, a bloodline, a future carrier, not of power, but of access. The serpent seed versus the woman's seed. Back in Genesis 3, I will put enmity between your seed and her seed. This is not poetic, it's biological. Two competing lineages, one aligned with corruption, one aligned with restoration. Why giants keep appearing? Nephilim before the flood, Rephaim after, Anakim in Canaan, Goliath, Og of Bashan. Why do giants keep showing up near Israel? Because Israel is the genetic target. The bloodline must be disrupted, diluted, destroyed. The flood didn't end the war. It reset the battlefield, but the conflict continued. Different methods, different forms, same objective: prevent the seed from surviving. Why is God so obsessed with genealogies? The Bible tracks bloodlines obsessively, begat after begat, names, ages, descendants, not storytelling, data tracking, monitoring contamination, ensuring continuity, preserving a vessel. The covenant is not a religion, it's a contract between divine authority and human genetics, a legal framework ensuring protection, guidance, intervention. Not because Israel is superior, but because Israel is strategic. Why the law is so strict? The law of Moses is extreme. Dietary rules, marriage restrictions, purity codes. These are not about morality, they're about containment, preventing genetic drift, maintaining biological compatibility. The real reason for circumcision, it's not symbolic, it's a physical marker, a permanent sign on the reproductive organ. This is not theology, this is lineage control. Why other nations are destroyed? Not all were, only specific ones. Canaanites, Amalekites, Rephaim territories. These regions are always linked to giants, hybrid myths, strange gods. These were contaminated zones. The war was not political, it was biological. David and Goliath was not about courage, it was about extermination. Goliath's brothers are listed, giant clans tracked. They are systematically eliminated because they represent genetic opposition. The covenant as a delivery system. Everything leads to one goal, a body capable of hosting divine consciousness without being destroyed. Not angels, not hybrids, a human, pure, compatible, uncorrupted. The terrifying implication. God is not building a religion, He is engineering a vessel. History is not random, it's a genetic funnel. Every war, every exile, every survival narrows the path. Why the bloodline survives everything. Empires rise and fall, but Israel remains, not by power, by preservation, protected through slavery, genocide, exile, invasion, statistically impossible, structurally intentional. The final revelation of chapter 7. The Bible is not mainly a spiritual story, it is a genetic war record. The covenant is not faith, it is biological continuity. And the Messiah is not coming to start a religion, He is coming to complete the experiment. Humanity was divided, the line was drawn, the seed was preserved, and now, history is no longer about the world, it's about who gets born. Chapter 7. The arrival of the vessel and why Jesus was not just a teacher. For thousands of years, the bloodline was preserved, protected, tracked, narrowed. Every generation survived against impossible odds, until finally the line converged into a single body. Not a king, not a warrior, not a prophet, a child. The incarnation was not symbolic, it was a biological event. Not God pretending to be human, but divine consciousness entering human DNA. A fusion, a bridge, a new category of being. Why the virgin birth matters. Not theological, genetic. No paternal lineage, no inherited corruption, no genetic contamination. A body created without historical damage. A vessel not formed by the broken system. Why Herod tried to kill all the children. It wasn't paranoia, it was intelligence. Something moved through the network, the birth was detected, and the countermeasure activated. Mass extermination. The same strategy used at Moses' birth and before the flood. Kill the seed. Why Jesus had no political ambition? Because his mission was not earthly. He didn't gather armies, he didn't build structures, he didn't claim territory. He entered the system to break it from the inside. The miracles were not proofs, they were system overrides. Reality behaving differently around him, matter responding, disease reversing, time bending. Not magic, compatibility. The environment recognized him. Why demons recognized him before humans did? They didn't ask who he was, they asked why he was there. They knew the category, they knew the threat, they had seen it before. The temptation in the wilderness. Satan offers him world authority, control, power, because he already knows who Jesus is. He's not trying to corrupt him, he's trying to redirect the mission. Why Jesus never writes anything? He doesn't need to. He is not transmitting information. He is the message. The body itself is the data. The real reason for the crucifixion, not forgiveness, not sacrifice, termination attempt, destroy the vessel, break the line, collapse the system, end the experiment. The paradox of the cross. They succeed and fail. The body is destroyed, but consciousness does not terminate. The system crashes and reboots. The resurrection is not a miracle, it's a system breach. A human body exits death, returns upgraded, not restored, transformed, no longer bound by physical limitations. Why he eats after resurrection? To prove continuity. Same identity, same being, different state. The vessel upgraded. Why he ascends? Because the mission is not to rule Earth, it's to change the rules of existence. The interface is complete, the bridge established. Humanity now has access to a new state of being. The terrifying implication. Jesus was not here to save us from sin. He was here to save us from the system, from decay, from entropy, from mortality, from the closed loop of death. Why the war doesn't end? Because the system adapts. Religion forms. Structures replace truth. Institutions replace transformation. The message becomes doctrine. The vessel becomes a symbol. The final revelation of chapter 7. The incarnation was not about belief, it was about biological transcendence, a new form of humanity introduced into reality, a prototype, not to be worshipped, but to be replicated. Jesus was not the end of the story, he was the beginning of a new species. Chapter 8. The end of the world was never about destruction. When most people think about the end of the world, they imagine fire. Cities collapsing, oceans boiling, the sky tearing open. But the biblical apocalypse is not about annihilation. It is about transition. Not the end of existence, but the end of a version of reality. Revelation is not a prediction. It's a blueprint, a technical document describing how a closed system evolves into an open one. Not destruction, upgrade. The old world is unsustainable. Humanity lives inside entropy. Everything decays, everything dies, everything ends. This is not punishment, it's system limitation. Biological hardware cannot host infinite consciousness. The container must be replaced. Why there is a final judgment? Not moral, compatibility check. Which identities can survive transition, which cannot? Judgment is not sentencing, it's sorting. The book of life is not a record, it's an access registry, not about deeds, about resonance, alignment with the new state of being. Why heaven comes down, not up. Humans are not leaving reality, reality is being rewritten. The divine environment merges with physical existence, two systems unify. The New Jerusalem is not a city, it's an interface, a structure where consciousness is no longer trapped in biology, identity is no longer tied to time, communication is instant, presence is permanent. Why there is no sun? Not poetic, technical. The system generates its own energy, no external source required, no entropy, no decay, no end. The end of death. Death is not defeated by force, it is obsolete. The new state does not support termination, existence becomes stable. The final enemy is not evil, it is limitation, time, space, memory loss, identity fragmentation. These are removed, not punished, removed. Why the body returns, not as flesh, but as form, a structure capable of existing without decay, holding infinite memory, interacting with reality without suffering, not spirit, not ghost, upgraded embodiment. The final form of humanity, not angels, not gods, something else, a hybrid state, human identity with divine operating system, not worshippers, participants. The war finally ends not with victory, but with resolution. No more corruption, no more contamination, no more competing systems. Reality becomes singular, unified, stable. The real meaning of salvation, not escape, not heaven, compatibility with transformation, to be able to exist in the next version of reality without being destroyed by it. The most shocking realization: the end of the world is not a catastrophe, it's birth. Humanity is not being judged, it is being rebuilt. Why this story had to be told this way? Because consciousness cannot be forced, it must choose. Awaken, participate. The story was never about fear, it was about preparation. The final word of the entire series: Genesis was not the beginning. Revelation is not the end. This is not a story of sin and punishment. It is a story of species evolution. From innocence to consciousness to transcendence. Humanity was not created to worship forever. It was created to become. And the end of the world is simply the moment we finally do. End of series. What really happened before Genesis 1:1? Subscribe for more Bible mysteries, hidden truths, and untold stories from Scripture.